Do your consumer marketing efforts feel complicated? Experian Automotive delivers data-driven marketing solutions to find new customers and keep loyal ones. Drive measurable results with trusted data and expert support. Learn more at Experian.com/automotive.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, September 26th, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, the U.S. will impose tariffs on heavy trucks and other products. Tesla urges President Trump not to repeal vehicle emissions rules. And JLR restarts some IT operations after its recent cyber attack. Plus, TransUnion's Satyen Merchant talks about the implications of the Fed's recent rate cut on dealership F&I offices and the prospect of more cuts later this year.
I do believe for sure that will create more opportunity for refinance, which is great for lenders that offer that product and great for consumers that are looking to save some money on their monthly payments.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. President Donald Trump is imposing new industry-specific tariffs, including a 25% levy on heavy trucks. Other new tariffs target things like kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and upholstered furniture. Trump made the announcement in social media post on Thursday evening. He says they will begin October 1st. Tesla is urging the Trump administration not to repeal vehicle emission standards or the long-standing U.S. finding that greenhouse gas emissions endanger human health. The EV leader says the EPA proposal, quote, would give a pass to engine and vehicle manufacturers for all measurement, control, and reporting of GHG emissions for any highway engine and vehicle. Earlier this week, a group representing General Motors, Toyota, Volkswagen, and nearly all other automakers asked the EPA to roll back its aggressive vehicle emissions limits that seek to force the industry to build a rising number of electric vehicles. And Jaguar Land Rover says it's restarting some of its operations and working to clear a backlog of payments to suppliers as quickly as possible. The British automaker has been forced to repeatedly extend a production shutdown after a cyber attack left its operations paralyzed and smaller suppliers struggling. JLR said Thursday that some systems were online, including the ones that control the supply of parts worldwide and the financial system that controls the wholesale of vehicles. It also said capacity for processing invoices for suppliers had increased. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. President Donald Trump's proclamation last week that H-1B visa applicants would pay a $100,000 fee highlights a Goldilocks problem for the auto industry. That's according to industry groups, lawyers, and data analysis. On our upcoming episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast, our own Hannah Lutz speaks with tech and innovation reporter Molly Boygon about her reporting on the subject. Here's a piece of their conversation.
Molly, you've been following the H-1B visa stories after the ICE raid at the Hyundai LG Energy battery plant in Georgia. So now the cost of those visas, which were already hard to get, will be $100,000. How will this affect automakers, suppliers, and auto tech companies?
Yes. So first of all, I just have to say that whoever decided to name the visas HB1 and B1, I would just like to talk. It's very confusing.
Did I say it right?
No, you did it. You said it right. You said it right. But I'm just saying in general, it's like when I'm writing about this, it's, it occupies a lot of brain space. But anyway, yes. So there's a new fee that's going to be applied for applications for the HB1 visa. So this is really interesting because, as you said, it's very hard to get. An analysis that I cite in the story says that only about 20% of applicants get their applications approved. So this is a pretty significant expense. However, the auto industry hasn't really relied on HB1 visas all that much. The government actually provides a database of employers that have gotten their beneficiaries improved. And the automaker that's highest on the list is Tesla, which has between 700 and 800 beneficiaries approved for HB1 visas. That's in comparison to big tech companies like Amazon, which has far, far more than that. So it's sort of a small-ish slice of the auto industry. But for me, this issue kind of highlights how there's a bit of a, what I call in the story, a Goldilocks problem. The industry has been relying on, in some cases, HV1 visas, which are very hard to get and now very expensive, or B1 visas, which are really not intended for the kind of skilled labor that different companies have been relying on to get their battery facilities up and running and things like that. So it is a very complex situation already. Lots of acronyms, lots of letters and numbers, and now lots of dollar signs.
Listen to Shift on Sunday to hear all of the latest news about automotive technology and innovation with new co-hosts Molly Boygan and Hannah Lutz, as well as an interview with Mike Murphy of the EV Politics Project. Coming up, TransUnion's Satyen Merchant talks about what the Fed's interest rate cut means for auto lending and the refinance market. That's next on Daily Drive.
Automotive News Shift podcast brings you the latest on automotive technology, trends, and transformation. I'm Hannah Lutz.
And I'm Molly Boygan. We're the new co-hosts of Shift, and we're excited to bring you new conversations with experts and industry insiders like this one with Larry Dominique, president of LD Management Consulting.
I do believe the legacy OEMs are falling into a trap. They've got to find a way to, in some ways, build a new airplane while they're still in flight.
Catch Shift, available every Sunday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you an automotive marketer navigating today's rapidly evolving landscape? Finding new customers and nurturing existing relationships can feel like a complex journey. But what if you had a powerful engine fueled by trusted data to guide your way? That's where Experian Automotive comes in. We understand the challenges you face. Today's personalized consumer journeys demand intelligent planning and precise execution. That's why we offer the Experian Marketing Engine, a coordinated suite of data-driven solutions designed to help you develop, execute, and most importantly, measure effective marketing campaigns. At the heart of our solutions is Experian's trusted data and a dedicated automotive team committed to your success. We empower you to drive measurable results with unique data insights, including identity solutions to help you better connect with your ideal customers with greater accuracy by cleaning and enriching your first-party data. Consumer and market insights helps you gain a deeper understanding of market trends and consumer behavior, enabling you to better target consumers. Targeted audiences to help you pinpoint and target the right prospects at the right time with the right message. Better data truly connects you to better results. Stop guessing and start driving measurable impact with Experian Automotive. Ready to transform your automotive marketing? Visit Experian.com/automotive to learn how our data-driven solutions can help you find new customers, keep loyal ones, and navigate the road ahead with confidence. That's Experian.com/automotive. Take control of your marketing journey today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. While the Fed's decision to cut its target interest rate was welcomed by consumers and provided a tailwind for the auto market, meaningful improvement in auto sales will likely require a combination of factors. That's according to Satyen Merchant, Senior Vice President of Automotive at TransUnion. Merchant spoke with Automotive News Senior Retail Editor Dan Shine about what other factors need to improve to the auto finance market.
Satyen, thanks again for joining me on the F&I Friday edition of Daily Drive.
Thanks, Dan. It's always nice to be here.
Wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about the recent rate cut. I'm always used to saying rate hike when talking about the Fed, so I have to kind of retrain my brain a little bit. The Fed with a modest 0.25 rate cut last week. I think many thought this was it's a step in the right direction, but it's not the panacea to all that ails us in the auto loan and the auto segment as far as affordability concerns are. But let's talk, I guess, to start off with a rate cut and what that kind of means, even though it's a smaller one, what a cut means for auto lending and that kind of the auto retail space.
Sure. I think, Dan, that it's like you said, a step in the right direction, particularly coming from a consumer's mind, as well as really a retailer and an OEM and a lender in terms of how to continue to stimulate and grow the business that they're in. we've seen from an origination point of view that there's already kind of positive uptrends over the last few quarters, especially in certain segments like subprime and super prime. And nearly all the segments are achieving year-over-year growth. So while a 25 basis point cut is modest, it's not a game changer. I think it may instill a bit of interest as well as confidence from consumers to say, hey, what I thought might have been something unaffordable, meaning an auto loan payment, recently may be becoming a bit more affordable. It's important, though, to point out that it's just one piece of the puzzle, that the interest rate, obviously the cost of the vehicle or the amount financed is another piece, as well as the loan term, the length of the loan. And on the one hand, lenders hopefully will start to flow through some of that lower cost of capital for them in terms of a lower interest rate. Lenders are also dealing with thinking through their risk management as delinquencies go up a bit and have been going up. And so, are they going to continue to have longer term loans or are they trying to pull in the length of a loan term to help manage their portfolio? These are all kind of the more complicated questions I think that lenders are thinking about in the auto industry. But to round out my very long answer here, I think a 25 basis point cut is certainly in the right direction and may start to instill a bit of momentum in the industry.
And it also could kind of maybe spur, I think we've talked about this before, and it's already been kind of a trend, I guess you might say, of of refinancing your current loan. That, again, this is a little bit of a cut, could even, kind of be a catalyst for more of interest in refinancing a current loan that a consumer might have.
Yeah, I think Dan's spot on. That's the area that's probably there's a much more direct tie to the Fed Reserve activity. And so again, the 25 basis point cut can help. Even prior to this cut, we took a look at the auto refinance market earlier in the year, and we sized it at about 18 million consumers at the time were in the market to stand to benefit from a refinance. They could save some meaningful amount of money on a monthly payment, and that was before the cut. So you would have to imagine that two things have happened since we did that study early in the year. One, more and more people are getting auto loans the market continues to run, right? And then two, the interest rates came down a little bit. So we do think that, and a little bit of our estimation was if there were 50 basis points cut, that would add maybe another 2 more million people in the US that could stand to benefit from a refi. So it won't take much more. Maybe there have been expectations or predictions that the Fed will continue to cut another 50 basis points or so through the end of this year. I do believe for sure that will create more opportunity for refinance, which is great for lenders that offer that product, and great for consumers that are looking to save some money on their monthly payments.
Right, you're right. They said they kind of did the projection that there could be more cuts coming. Do you think also? I mean, there's a part of this equation. Another piece of the puzzle is just what consumers are dealing with on the day-to-day stuff, the grocery bills that are still maybe high, and consumer insurance products that their car insurance is high. All these kind of cut helps all these kind of costs maybe come down a little bit lower, where they can maybe manage their budget. Say, okay, maybe I can afford to have now a vehicle payment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a really good example is that insurance premium. Consumers have been dealing with increased insurance on their vehicle, also on other property like their home. But just taking a look at the vehicle, I mean, we're now here close to the fourth quarter of the year. If most consumers have had their term and their insurance renewed, if not to date, it will happen in the next few months, right? And myself included, I got an increased insurance premium this year on the renewal, right? And so I think this is an aspect that maybe in the past consumers more or less assume their insurance would be the same and it's not something they had to budget for on an annual increase. Now that refinance that could save them $50 a month could be the exact saving they're looking for to offset, say, an increase of an insurance premium, of $50 a month, right? So, as an example, those increased cost insurance, like you said, groceries and other just kind of day-to-day staples, that refinance could really help them offset those increased costs.
And we haven't really mentioned kind of like talk much about tariffs. Are tariffs still an issue when it comes to potentially increasing the cost of a vehicle?
It's a great question, Dan. I think it was a big question at the beginning of the year or in the first quarter when the tariffs were announced. What we have seen to date is that they haven't had a massive impact ultimately at retail what a consumer is paying for a new vehicle. But there are a lot of mitigating levers that have been out there. We have seen in some cases that the OEMs have stated that they absorbed the cost of those tariffs and did not pass it on to the consumer. In other cases, what we found is that an OEM might have adjusted their production or already had existing inventory that had landed here in the United States, so they weren't subject to the tariffs. At some point, those mitigating levers may run out, and there still could be a possibility that the impact of the tariffs come through. So it's still to be seen what levers that a manufacturer or dealer can use to mitigate what could be a cost increase. But wide scale, it hasn't happened yet. It's still a risk out there though for consumers.
Yeah, for sure. Satyan, it's always great talk about this with you, and maybe we'll see when the next time the Fed meets what they do, and we'll have you on again. We can talk about how that might change the auto lending landscape out there. But thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dan.
Satyan Merchant is Senior Vice President of Automotive at TransUnion. He spoke with our own Dan Shine. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Molly Boygon for her reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on finance and insurance, tariffs, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back over the weekend for our Weekend Drive edition of the show. Automotive News reporters Larry Bellaquette and Richard Truitt join me to talk about the week's biggest news stories, including the latest on the cyber attacks against JLR and Stellantis.
It only takes one person to screw up on an email, right? And suddenly the wolves are in the chicken coop.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailyDrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.